here is what no one tells you. Wealth doesn't come first, you do. The comments in the bank account show up after the courage, the clarity, and the habits that turn effort into equity and cash flow.
Most people think, well, it's a number, a portfolio, a polished post that says, I have made it.
I have sat across the table from lenders, underwriter, and even seven-figure vendors. And I can tell you, most don't even know what wealth actually is. What if everything you were thought about wealth was designed for someone else's dreams, not yours? But what if it's not something you find? What if it's someone you become? I learned the hard way. I was making six-figure as an engineer, living the dream on paper, and I retired at 32 to take a leap into building something bigger in real estate, a portfolio that would have given me freedom, choices, and legacy. I closed a few deals, good ones,
and a few very bad ones too. But I was missing the fundamentals of building wealth.
And I watched my accounts drain until only $35 were left. Of course, my confidence dropped, and for a moment, I thought it meant I wasn't good enough, that I have failed. Mortgage, utilities, and every survival expense was due. No plan B, just purpose and pressure, and a vow that I wasn't going back to corporate. It wasn't a failure. It was a broken system that never taught us how to build wealth on our own terms. And that becoming, it doesn't happen in the spotlight. It builds in silence, through patterns, through power moves no one claps for, through habits that don't just add income, but multiply identity. Once I figured out those habits, in just 1 week, I raised almost $1 million for a land development deal. And that deal doubled returns for our investors. And since then, I have raised millions of dollars, managed over $150 million in purpose-led assets. Not because I had all the answers, because I stopped waiting and I started becoming the woman who reflects wealth before it even shows up in the bank. And I know this, you have already poured your brilliance into career, into your family, into your path. But if it still feels like your money is not matching your mastery, you're not broken. You're just ready for a different wealth code. And that shift, it doesn't take forever. It starts with clarity, with courage, and with one aligned move. In this video, we're diving into the 12 habits of quietly wealthy women. So stay with me because what comes next could change how you earn, how you live, and how you live.
The habit number 1, wealthy women think in decades, not just deals. Wealthy women are not addicted to the quick win. They're playing the long game. They're obsessed with endurance. Every investment, every relationship, every decision has one will filter. Only one. Will this still serve me 10 years from now? And that mindset changes everything from how we negotiate to how we rest. When I was thinking in months, not years, I felt frantic, like I was always catching up. My inbox owed me, my calendar run the show, and I still have seasons like that. Then I have to remind myself, will these still matter in a decade? Everything comes down. I say no to the noise and yes to what builds wealth with breath in my chest. And I get it. We all need a win. Some short, fat check, progress in our health, lifestyle to get us going, inspire us, and feel we're winning. And if we want to build wealth in every aspect, we must think in the long term too. Some women will start flipping houses in real estate to build big fat checks, and then they will go into cash flow mode. You know what I noticed? That so many brilliant women, high achieving, deeply driven, are planning their wealth like they're planning dinner. Short term, immediate, what's fast, what's easy, what's available right now. But the quietly wealthy women, The ones that think about this, they think like architects, like a farmer, like women who know their vision deserves more than a quick flip and a cute check. They ask, will these serve me 10 years from now? Not just, can I make money this quarter? That one question changes everything. It's the difference between chasing crumbs and building a bakery. So between flipping something once for a hit of dopamine and planting an asset that feeds you for years. As wealthy women, you plant once and every season it blooms. Whether you're working or resting, the roots keep growing. And that's the difference between wealth and a quick win. And here is where most women trip up, right? They think long-term planning has to mean sacrifice. That is about being boring or frugal or locking up yourself into a plan that kills your joy. But no, it's the opposite. The long-term thinking activity, it just frees you because when you plan with the future in mind, your present start making more sense. Your decisions feel cleaner, sharper. You stop saying yes to things that drain you because you are not longer addicted to the quick yes. It's like every time I look at a deal or even a relationship, I will ask, will this make my future self proud? Or just my present feel relief? My present self. So if you're listening to this and thinking, crap, I have been living deal by deal, paycheck by paycheck, dopamine hit to dopamine, I remember the moment it hit me. My bank account was fine, but I wasn't. I was chasing numbers, but losing trust in my own ability to rest. And my calendar was full, my soul was starving. Hey, don't worry, no shame. We all have been there. When I finally shifted into decade thinking, everything changed. I built longer partnerships, my investors pipeline got cleaner, and ironically, the money came faster because I wasn't chasing, I was designing. So you're here listening, leaning in, which means your timeline just got longer. Your runaway just expanded. And that's what happened when you stop surviving and start planning your seat at the table of time. You don't just invest, you architect the future. So let me ask you this. What if you stop solving for the next month's pressure and start building for your next decade of peace? What if wealth wasn't about speed, but about staying in your own power? Quietly, women think like legacy holders. They think women who know their name will outlive their timeline. And you're already here. You just need to remember how she plans. Habit number 2. They master boring before chasing big. I get it. Before I started my hotel syndications and 7-figure deals came the spreadsheets, the discipline, the non-stop learning and reading, and still today that happens, the rinse and repeat rituals. Quietly wealthy women automate, optimize, and simplify. They buy boring businesses with cash flow, invest in multifamily, hotels. They master the fundamentals and make them look sexy through the power of consistency. Because the foundation is what really frees you. That's what builds momentum that lasts. And did you ever met someone that was obsessed with the next thing, but it still doesn't know where their money actually goes every month? Yes, I have been there too. I have mentored her. I have invested with her. And let me tell you, quietly wealthy women, they don't play that game. They master boring before chasing the big. And here's what I really mean. Before the flashy fun came the unsexy spreadsheet. Before the business flights, right, or private jets came the bookkeeper. Before the 8-figure portfolio came the 4 unit that taught them everything. Quiet women is built in the details. It's built when no one is watching. Running the numbers 3 different ways. Reading another investor update instead of another Instagram caption. Choosing consistency over charisma It's the woman who knows that cash on cash is not just a cute phrase. It's the difference between spinning your wheels and watching your wealth compound. So let me be real with you. I see a lot of women jumping straight into what looks successful. Private equity, hotels, crypto, short-term rentals, and concierge services, and lavenders and soaps, right? And listen, I love these places, don't get me wrong. I have built and invested in many of those businesses, but I didn't need to start there. I started by mastering the fundamentals. Because when you know how to build a boring fourplex in a solid zip code or underwrite a 6 units in your sleep, you become dangerous in the best way. You just don't hope a cash flow. You make it work, you make it perform, you make it cash flow. Want to know what boring looks like in my world? Acquiring a multifamily in a working class neighborhood where people say no vacation, right? Investing in self-storage because heartbreaks doesn't stop and neither does stuff. Buying boring businesses that cash flow month after month because everyone needs a plumbing, a bookkeeper, or a pet food business. And I have a friend that she owns a pork and potty business. Yes, girl. And she cashed a lot of money, right? So she's cash flowing 5 figures a month, while someone else out there is trying to build a startup for dogs with separation anxiety. I'm not saying, don't be creative, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, build your boring first, your foundation. Because when you build boring well, you get to chase big from a place of stability, not a scarcity. From power, not pressure. And here is the part that no one's talking about. Boring gives you freedom. So you're not waking up wondering, what's next? You're waking up thinking, what do I want next? My friends, that's the flex right there. So let me ask you something. Are you bored because you're building something real? Or are you chasing shiny objects because your foundation feels shaky? The quietly women know the difference. They master boring because boring pays them long after the hype has disappeared. And once the boring works, then we build empires. That's the magic of it. Habit number 3, it's wealthy women lead with alignment, non-approval. I have to share this with you. Have you ever walked into a room and just feel someone's presence before they even speak? And she's not the loudest. She's not demanding attention or any of that. But something about her makes you sit up straight and pay attention. She is encore. She is clear. She is unbothered. Quietly wealthy women carry that energy because they don't move from pressure. They move from peace. They don't need to prove. They're too busy aligning. And look, I wasn't always that woman. There was a time I said yes to everything because I didn't want to seem as difficult. I wear heels to meetings that didn't deserve my presence, and that's something I stopped. Right? I don't go to those meetings. I build things that look great on paper, but felt hollow in my body. It wasn't aligned. Not because I lack ambition, but because I was still secretly waiting for someone else to say, "You're doing it right." I was chasing applause when what I actually needed was really aligned. And that approval addiction is very expensive. It costs you clarity, it costs you money, it costs you time with people who see your soul, not just your potential. Then one day I asked myself a question that changed everything. What if I stop trying to impress the room and start listening to the women I am becoming, to that other sense, that intuition, that little voice that I have been hiding inside of me? What if the yes I gave myself finally held more weight than anyone else? And that shift, that is when everything changed. And I stopped negotiating with doubt. I stopped editing my power, and I started making decisions that felt like truth, not performance. The weirdest thing, when I stopped performing, adapting to who I'm supposed to be, how I'm supposed to behave, people start following, because alignment is magnetic. You don't have to push, you don't have to chase, you just show up and the right opportunities land in. Alignment doesn't mean being passive or soft. It means making decisions that come from your vision, your soul, your internal world, not validation. Like that time I walked away from a deal that looked perfect on the spreadsheet, but deep down I knew something was up. And 2 months later, that deal completely collapsed. And because I had said no, I was available to say yes to something better. A project that tripled investors' return and felt like me all the way too. That's alignment. I want you to think about this. Let me ask you something. Where in your life are you negotiating with approval instead of owning your alignment? The moment you trade applause and recognition for alignment, you become unforgettable, because power doesn't shout, it resonates. Think about this. Where are you shrinking, performing, shape-shifting when your power is trying to rise? Quiet wealth starts with self-trust, because when a woman stops asking for permission, everything aligns around her clarity.
Here's habit number 4.
They know their financial identity. Like a big sister who has done the work and now walks with you, right, as you rise. Let's talk about one of the most underrated truths in wealth building. Quiet wealth doesn't come from confidence. It comes from clarity. And the women I know who build real sustainable wealth, they know themselves. They know their investing style. They have a criteria. They know their risk tolerance. There is hell knows and there's I'm all in. They're not coping to what's trending on Instagram. They're not jumping into crypto, not criticizing crypto. It can be a good investment. I'm just saying that they're not just doing it because everybody else is doing it. They're doing it because someone said. They're not doing it because it's the next big thing. Someone said that. They know who they are. They're not looking for magical one-time big home runs. They're working a map. They build wealth that matches their life and their leadership, not someone else's blueprint. And this is what I call financial identity. It's like your internal GPS. It tells you where to go, what to say yes to, and what to walk away from. Even when it sparkles, because there's also some cool opportunities out there, but it doesn't align with you. And here's what happened when you don't have that identity lock-in. You show up to the negotiation table and you get crumbs. And I have seen it. And in fact, I have sat in rooms where men offer women the tiniest slice of the returns while keeping the lion's share for themselves. Not because the woman wasn't smart, but because she wasn't clear. When you can name your value, your criteria, your plan, someone else will define it for you. And often, very often, they will undervalue and over leverage themselves. Financial identity is power, is protection, is peace, and it took me time to learn that. Early in my real estate journey, I was trying everything. Notes, flips, small rentals, but nothing really fit. And then I found syndication and it clicked for me. The strategy that matched my brain, the impact matched my heart. And I got obsessed with learning the structure, the deal criteria, the risk control. And I went from guessing to leading, from chasing to choosing. And that's when everything makes sense, everything aligned. So the right partners came, the right deals flow in, the right investors show up, people who respected my clarity and trusted my execution. And now I teach other high earning women how to find the same clarity without wasting 10 years in the wrong room with the wrong people, building someone else's dream. I want you to let that sink. If this is resonating and you want to learn how to protect your capital, move with confidence in real estate syndications, I've got a really small gift for you. Download my free due diligence checklist. It's down below in the link. It's the fast track I wish I had. And I will show you how to ask the right question before investing in any deal and help you spot red flags before they become regrets. You will find it in the description below, because this is not just about dollars, it's about identity. And when your identity is aligned, the wealth follows. Habit number 5, they don't wait for confidence, they build capacity. Let me say it again. They don't wait for confidence, they build capacity. Let me get this thing straight. Confidence is cute, I love it. Capacity, that's power. And the quietly wealthy women you admire, they didn't start where they are now, with the glow, the portfolio, the poise. They started messy. We all did. With nervous voices, with shaky hands on our first deal, our first wire transfers, with Google searches like, what is that internal rate of return, IRR? And why is everyone yelling about it? They didn't wait to feel ready. They built themselves into readiness. Move by move, rep by rep. Because there's the truth. Confidence is often the result of action, not the requirement for it. Let me repeat again. Confidence is often the result of action, not the requirement for it. But so many women I talk, they think they need to feel more confidence before they invest, before they even start learning. No, mi amor, no. You don't wait for confidence, you build capacity. Capacity means skills, it means information, it means endurance, so you can hold the pressure and the payout that comes with investing. Let me be real with you. The first time I stood in front of a group of investors. I was pitching a real estate deal, and my armpits were sweating like it was their full-time job, let's call it that way. And I kept checking my math like I was being audited by the IRS and Jesus at the same time. But I show up. I learned the structure. I practiced the words. I got feedback. And I invested in coaching. So I wasn't ready, but I invested in coaching and I kept learning and I put myself into readiness. I just kept going. And with every move, my capacity grew. Now I raise millions of dollars with calm. But it wasn't because I waited until I felt confident already. It's because I decided I was done playing small and I started building big. Here's the deal. Women are constantly told to be more confident. But what if that's the wrong ask? What if the real ask is, are you willing to be a beginner long enough to build mastery? Let me ask that again. Are you willing to be a beginner long enough to build mastery? Because quietly wealthy women, they're not perfect. They practice. They make peace with the awkward first steps. They trade imposter syndrome for intentional skill building. You don't need to be perfect. You don't even need to be fearless. You just need to be in motion. Start where you are with what you know and commit to growing your capacity like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Again, commit to growing your capacity like it's your most valuable asset. Think about this. What skill will unlock the next level of your wealth journey? If you stop waiting to feel ready and start learning today, what will be that skill?
Habit number 6.
Wealthy women ask better questions. Do you ever notice how most women are taught to ask questions that shrink us? Can I afford it? What if I fail? Am I allowed to do this? Do I have permission? Will they think I'm too much? But quietly, wealthy women, question mark, what is that they really ask? They ask different questions, braver questions, even better questions. They don't ask, can I afford it? They ask, what's the return on alignment? Not what if I fail? They ask, what it will cost me if I don't try. Because here's the thing, questions shape direction. They build your mindset or they bind it. And if you're asking a small scared questions, your life will obey. And I learned this from a lady named Debbie Ford. She says, questions are faithful. They determine what we notice, how we feel, and what we create. So that means that the quality of your life, your wealth, your relationship is directly tied to the quality of your questions. So what is that we need to do? We need to upgrade them. So instead of asking, is this risky? Ask, what's the upside if I educate myself properly to make this decision? Or what is the risk of staying exactly where I am today? See the difference? See the contrast? Instead of, will I lose money? Ask, have I done the due diligence to protect this capital? Or what is the system I need to build long-term returns? See the difference again? And the last question, do I deserve this? Ask, what kind of legacy do I want to build? Then move in that direction. Even if your knees are shaking, go ahead. Quietly wealthy women are not just asking more questions. They're asking a strategic, identity-aligned ones. And listen, this applies to investing in life. When I wasn't sure about a deal, instead of asking, will this make me money? I started thinking about, what did Debbie Ford taught me? And I start asking a very different question. Does this investment align with my values, with my timeline, and my long-term wealth criteria? See that? Instead of, will this make me money? I start asking, does this investment align with my values, my timeline, and my long-term wealth criteria? That question alone saved me from shiny objects deals that looked really sexy but didn't fit. Because when you ask better questions, you get more than answers. You get clarity, you get direction, you get power. And when it comes to investing, that power turns into real returns. You got that? You get clarity, direction, power, and when it comes to investing, that power turns into real returns. So think about this. What is one small question you have been asking lately that keeps you stuck? And what is the braver, better one you could ask instead? Let that sink in. What is that braver, better one you could ask instead? Here's habit number 7. Wealthy women cultivate strategic circles. You heard that? Strategic circle. Let's get something really straight, right? Because I think this is important that we understand. Quietly women, they don't go and network. That's what most people do. They curate. They don't show up to every event and hand out cards like a candy or direct message DM strangers with pitch decks. Yes, there's a moment that you start learning this process, you need to network. But as you go through this process, understand the difference between network and curating. They move different. And most likely they're asking, who thinks like me, but also pushes me, stretches me, challenges me? Who is not just clapping, but challenging me privately, powerfully, without performance? So you're looking for that inner circle that push you beyond your comfort zone with the grace that we want. You ask questions about who will build with me, grow with me, and have my back when things get messy, not just when they look shiny. That is the strategic circle, not just a room, not any room, but a room that raises your return. And I love to put those rooms together and create events for women to come together to find each other into this circle. Because one time a friend told me something, and in fact it was recently that landed in my chest. Jen, we are meant to help, but not everyone is meant to be helped by you. You got that? Jen, we're meant to help, but not everyone is meant to be helped by you. Your gift belongs in aligned hands. And that right there clicked, because I was burning out myself. Not everyone deserves your help. You might want to help them, but it's just they cannot be helped by you. There's other people, they have to go through a journey in order to be helped by you. So we don't owe access to everyone. We owe discernment to our future self. You got that? I'm talking to myself too. We owe discernment to our future self, because where your energy goes, your results grow. Top networkers in the world like Reid Hoffman and from LinkedIn founder and Yvonne Misner from BNA founder will tell you, success doesn't come from knowing everyone. It comes from building trust with the right few. And how you show up matters. And that stick with me. And then I started talking to a few friends, and they recommend me to read this book that the name is Give and Take from Adam Grant. And he explains that most successful givers are not the ones who give to everyone. They give selectively to people who are also givers, to people who follow through, who carry weight, who pay generosity forward, not just drain it dry. Because I have been there. I have been there where I have been drained dry. So if you ever felt burned by helping someone who disappeared the moment they made it, you're not wrong. That's exactly what they were doing, taking it. And it wasn't a relationship that you can pour. And in the journey, you learn, I get it. But I'm just sharing this with you because I recently I had a conversation with a friend, and he talked to me about that book. I bought it, I read it, and I understood. You were given to someone out of alignment. Quietly women, or quietly wealthy women, they learn, they still give, but now it's very intentional. In my investor circle, we celebrate privately and we challenge gently but precisely. For example, have you get your first home. Even if you have a business, have you get a first investment property? And I remember one of our friends, she just heard that and right away she went and she got an investment property. We fix each other crowns without the world watching. There's no need. We grow together and we move in legacy, not likes. It's not like a group chat. It's a grow engine. And if you have never been in a room where you felt seen, sharpened, and supported, let me say this. That room exists. I remember dealing with the same situation. Most men in the room, nothing against them, they're awesome. But then I needed to talk about certain things. I needed to feel seen, sharpened, and supported by other women. And that women, there was not many of them. I just created. But it's not always obvious. You have to become the version of you who walks in, shoulders back, clarity in hand, ready to both receive and contribute. Again, receive and contribute. If your circle is not expanding you, it's costing you. So again, if your circle is not expanding you, it's costing you. And if your circle feels safe but is stagnant, it's time to upgrade the conversation. Just think about it. There's many areas that you can find circles that will elevate you. And again, you will give, and yes, you will receive. Here's is habit number 8. They embrace systems over hustle. Again, embrace systems over hustle. You know what's not sexy for a lot of people? Systems. And I know this because I spent a lot of time as an engineer setting up systems for many manufacturings before I decided to jump into real estate. But you know what is sexy? Waking up on a Tuesday, going for a walk, and knowing your investments are still compounding. Your calendar is not chaos. Your money is moving with intention. And your energy protected. This is what wealthy women do. Because quietly wealthy women, they don't worship hustle. They don't. They master leverage. And this is something I have been learning and working out with a lot of my friends as we are scaling our business. How do we master leverage? Wealthy women know hustle burns out. Systems scale. Systems compound. And look, I get it. You know, it's not the easiest thing to do. The world celebrates hustle like it's a badge of honor. Like, you gotta hear, I'm spending these many hours, working really hard. I get it. I have been there. I have done that. And the 16 hours a day, they doing it at all. The calendar stacks so tight that you don't even have time to go to the restroom to pee. That's not freedom. That's not freedom. And a lot of times when I am transitioning, I am dealing with that situation over and over again where my calendar just sat so tight. And it's like that fear in a productivity costume. Let's call it like that. It's a fear. That's what it is. Quietly, women live differently. They document, they delegate, they automate, not because they're lazy. That's not what we're talking about. Because they're strategic. That's what I'm always working and thinking when I'm scaling business, when I'm acquiring a business. Do I need to do this? Can I delegate this? Who is the best person to take care of this? Can these be automated? Wealthy women, quietly women, they don't inflate their lifestyle to prove a point. They budget, they track, they invest in things that move silently but powerfully. So it's not about the lifestyle. That's up to you if you want to do it, but they don't inflate their lifestyle to prove that point. A friend once asked me, your wealth doesn't need to scream to be real. actually, she told me that, and I asked her, can you repeat it? And she said, Jen, your wealth doesn't need to scream to be real. And it was pretty interesting because we were talking about getting new cars, a very expensive car, and how I didn't want that because it wasn't me, it wasn't aligned. And she answered that. So sometimes the quietest balance sheets hold the loudest freedom. I didn't want to have a expensive car. Of course, I bought a multifamily, and with a multifamily, I now pay for the car. But she was right. And this is what wealthy women, she is a very wealthy woman. So these women live below their means, not because they cannot live big, but because they understand the math of freedom. And it's something I have been implementing in my life: financial systems, energy systems, delegation systems, decision systems. Those systems release you. They know, the wealthy women know that working harder is not the flex. Working wiser is. Now, don't get me wrong, there are systems for greed. All of us know that, right? But the wealthy women treat hustle like spice, not the whole meal. Because there's times that that's going to happen. But if you can treat it like a meal, so it started getting smoother. And when I studied some of the most brilliant women leading with wealth and peace, I noticed something that it was mind-blowing. Women like Denise Duffield Thomas, who preach is over endless hustle. Maria Forleo, I love Maria Forleo. She's really cool, who systematized her genius into scalable freedom. And then you think about someone like even Tiffany Alish, who teaches the beauty of budgeting with joy, not shame. That was a cool one. And they all say the same thing in their own way. Hustles get you out of survival. Systems get you into sovereignty. Again, systems. So let me ask you this as we go through this process. Are you building something that survives only if you keep pushing? Or are you creating something that thrives even when you rest? And that's going to tell you a lot. And that's the questions I have been working really hard. I have been hustling to figure out systems to get to that point, because freedom is not earned through exhaustion. It's built through intelligent design. And if you need permission to ditch the hustle and start systematizing, here it is, hermanita. You get it. Give yourself permission to ditch the hustle and start systematizing. Find out how you can start delegating, how you can start attaching these other tasks that you don't have to do. Your future self will thank you. And I'm telling that to myself too. And then we have habit number 9. Wealthy women, they make peace with power. It's pretty simple. Power used to scare me. And I don't mean tyrants or titles. I mean own my own power. The part of me that can walk into a negotiation and not shrink. It's nerve-wracking. The part of me that could say no without apology or yes without permission. That means to me own my power. The part that knew how to lead even when no one clapped, when no one liked what we had to say. For a long time, I mistook softness for virtue and ambition for arrogance. But here's what I learned in that journey of discovery. Power doesn't corrupt. It doesn't. It clarifies. In fact, it's like an expansion. It reveals what was already inside of you. And the quietly wealthy women I know, they don't run from power. They embrace it. They don't fumble the mic when the money's on the table. That's pretty cool because we go and play. They have made peace with it. Let's call it, they have made peace with power, spiritually, strategically, financially. They just know. They know. And power isn't not about dominating the room. That's not the power I'm talking about. It's about deciding what kind of room you are willing to build. See the difference? Power is not about dominating the room. It's about deciding what kind of room you're willing to build and who you invite to sit at your table. That's power. Because power is not a crown you wait to be handed. That doesn't happen that way. It's something that you have to really go for it. It is a poster you choose to embody. And these women, they use power to lead, not control, to multiply, not to manipulate, to bless, not to boast. And in my own life, I have walked into deals where men try to test me. It's not fun. It's not fun. And I get this question often, Jen, how do you deal with these situations when you go into a room and men try to test you? They try to see if I had backed down. And there were days I did. There are days that I decided not to go for it because I had not yet made peace with my own authority at that moment. But the moment I stopped asking, I'm allowed to lead, that was one moment for me that made a big change because I start owning my power. I start recognizing that I was born to lead and everything shifted. And I'm talking about everything. Finances, wealth, businesses. So you want to know a secret from the real playbook? Power is not taken. It's held. And it took me a while to process that information. But what I know is that it's held with clarity. It's held with grace. It's held with stillness. This is very critical. Stillness make a difference too. I once heard a spiritual teacher said something that really stuck with me, and is that you cannot get sick enough to heal the world. You cannot get small enough to make others feel big. And those are inheritance beliefs I had as a woman coming from a culture, in the Latino culture, and being from male dominant environments. You cannot get sick enough to heal the world. You cannot get small enough to make others feel big. So at that point, I stopped. Because I felt that deep. Because playing small never made me safer. It just made me silent. It frustrated me. It angered me multiple times. So I started walking into rooms with my full voice. And I did stop apologizing. Not to shout, that's not what it was. But to speak with a conviction that came from, how do I say this? I will say from alignment. It came from alignment. And that gave me the power. That gave me really great deals too. It allowed me to be happy with the decisions that were happening in that room. Quietly wealthy women, they don't feel power. They wield it with integrity. That's what makes very powerful women. They wield power with integrity. And one of my favorite authors, and I read his book, it's Robert Greene, and he once wrote, though I will paraphrase his core truth, the book was pretty challenging to read. It was something about the 28 laws of power. But what he says is that true power is never loud. It's the calm confidence of someone who doesn't need to prove anything. And that right there shocked me, because being in a man's world, that's how normally we're expecting to act. So his philosophy is about that you don't need to prove anything, or power doesn't need to prove anything, because their moves speak louder than their marketing. And that stick with me. And it hit me, and I'm like, okay, I will adopt that. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. I think this is going to be super cool. Where have you outsourced your authority? Where are you still asking for permission to leave? Because the moment you stop running from your power is the moment money, leadership, and impact start running to you. You start becoming that magnet. And it doesn't mean you will always feel ready. That's not what I'm saying. That would be a fantasy. It means you will feel anchored. Power, when aligned with purpose, is the most sacred form of wealth. Here's habit number 10. They protect their energy like capital. Okay, I will be super open and vulnerable with you and real. This one's still a work in progress for me. The reason for that is because I love people and I love co-creating with them. I love saying yes to big, bold, beautiful things. But sometimes too much yes become a no to your vision. And I live in that pattern for over a decade until I met a few friends that remind me of these specific habits. Quietly wealthy women don't just budget money. They budget time. They protect energy like it's equity, like it's cash flow, because it is. Their calendars are not chaotic. I'm still working on that. Their inboxes are not traps. I'm okay with that one. I don't have a problem. Their phones don't dictate their peace. They treat time like a high-yield investment, not a currency to be spent on guilt or urgency or other people's chaos, which is owning our agenda, claiming our agenda. And this is the one that I work the hardest these days because it's not embedded in me. I still having that fun time. I want to say yes to many things. So let me be very open with you. I have seasons where I gave so much energy to everyone else's priority that I ended staring at my own goals, exhausted, frustrated, and behind. And that happened in many areas of my life. Building someone else's business, building someone else's bank account, building else someone's path to success in their wealth journey. And probably this happens to you. You ever felt that way? Do you ever feel like your ambition is burning hot, but your calendar is gaslighting your potential? And yes, same here. I have been practicing, let's not work hard, but working aligned. Alignment is important. Anything that is the goals that align, I will give priority. Not just giving energy, but creating it. Not just reaching to the day, but designing it. So one of the most impactful things I have learned is that high performance, they just don't manage time. They manage transitions. And that's the part that I was feeling the most, managing that transition. They pause, they breathe. I used to do that and then I stopped doing that, where I was taking time to breathe, to pause, to stand still. And something I have learned too is that quietly wealthy women, they ask, who do I need to be in this next hour? If it's a high performer, if it's a salesperson, who is that you need to be in the next hour? Because it's not about doing more, it's about showing up with presence, precision, and power when it actually matters. The women I coach who are building quiet well, they know their highest return on investment is not in saying yes to everything. It is saying yes to the right things at the right time with the right energy. You got that? The trio? The right things, right time, with the right energy. They block space to think. They schedule recovery like it's revenue. And they walk into meetings like they own their outcomes because they're not rushing. And they're not rushing to catch up. They're arriving already clear. And that's who I'm aspiring to be. That's what I'm working so hard to get or align. So the biggest permission I had to give is myself. So rest is not the reward, it's the requirement. And I needed to learn that, integrate that in my life. So you don't earn peace after the burnout. I'm gonna show you this. You build peace into the plan. And I have been trying to learn how to back down for many yeses so I can open a space to welcome the other blessings I get in life. So if your calendar feels like chaos, if your inbox makes you want to cry, if your energy is going to everyone but you, girls, let's reset that. Let's just start treating time like the sacred capital it is. And that's something I'm actually embedding too. I have it in a sticky note that says that. Sacred capital is my time. So ask yourself where I am spending time that doesn't return anything but resentment. I know, that's a tough one again. Where am I spending time that doesn't return anything but resentment? What is the one thing I can remove this week that makes a space for clarity, creativity, or cash flow? And that's the approach I have been taking. What is one thing I can remove this week that makes a space for clarity, creativity, or cash flow? What if I started scheduling myself like I was the most important client? Heck yeah, that sounds like awesome. Because quietly wealthy women, they don't hustle harder, they guard their genius. They know that a calm calendar is often the most radical proof of a wealthy life. You got that? They know that a calm calendar is often the most radical proof of a wealthy life. So I'm still working on that one. Here's habit number 11. They celebrate in private, invest in public. You know what I love about quietly wealthy women? They don't need to prove anything. The back is cute, but the building, that's better. And that champagne is fun, actually, right? It's that kind of awesome moment when you figure out what's going on, right? There's nothing to prove. This is what we're building. The syndication for them, it's freedom because they get to invest in real estate deals or other types of syndications, and they feel it's freedom because they don't have to execute these projects or be involved in their time. They're not investing in these projects for likes. They're investing for leverage. That was one of the biggest lessons, because here's the thing. Loud wealth is often insecure. It's borrowed, it's begging for validation. But quiet wealth, she owns that. Earn it, enduring. She owns, earned, enduring. When these women toast, it's to cash flow, it's to equity, it's to deals that don't make it on Instagram, but do hit the wire with 6-figure returns. Those are the kind of fun projects, right? Now, let me tell you something very personal, because I think, it's really critical. I once closed a deal on 3 hotels, nothing fancy. It was just 3 hotels, economic, extended stay hotels. We turned it into that, not even 3 stars. They were not sexy at all, right? You are not going to see amazing reviews. But what happened is that they were not trending. They didn't have a rooftop bar or a sleek brand name. They did not. Those are cool too, but they did not. And when I shared the deal with a few investors, I was a little bit shocked because numbers were solid and they were cash flowing heavily. And some of them literally left. And I did not understand what was going on, but those 3 hotels, they were cash flow like really, really big cows. And they serve families, travelers in transition, and people in need. And over time, they did not just deliver a lot of chunks of money and cash flow, they 3x investors' returns, which it was pretty interesting. I was trying to understand the alignment between these investors and the investors that decide to put the money. So why? They did not invest because no one else wanted to touch them on flashy deals. They wanted to have the bragging style. While the people that invest on those deals, they did have more money than these other investors that were laughing. And it was very interesting to me to understand the psychology behind that. And that's when I figured out. That's what quiet wealth actually looks like. When you lead with conviction, the room adjusts. You don't need approval, you own the frame. And not everyone is going to join, and that's okay. You don't need the applause. I didn't need the applause. I was there to deliver returns and performance for this project while we were leading a great cause. And I didn't need to perform credibility. The results spoke. The wire receipts did the talking. But it was very interesting for me to see this process and how so many investors might want that applause. What the brain remembers most is not flash. It's the frame that made them feel secure and smart and seen. And sometimes, right, you need to figure out what does that mean to you. And that deal right there anchored my credibility to continue to grow and opening doors for many other investors that can write really big checks. Not because I shouted about it, because it proved what I already knew. Quiet wealth doesn't need validation. It needs vision and the courage to choose returns over any kind of recognition, flashy post in Instagram or anything like that. That's what quiet wealth doesn't need validation. They already know. So
ask yourself, am I choosing the optics of wealth or the ownership of it? Oof. Let me ask that again. Am I choosing the optics of wealth or the ownership of it? Do I want the party or the piece that follows a funded plan? Oy. Do I want people to clap for me or capital to work for me? Because the women I mentor, the women I work with, the women who invest with me, they're not here to be impressive. They already are. They're amazing. They're doing great things. They don't have to prove anything. They're here to be unignorable in assets, in equity, and aligned investments. Their celebration is quiet. It's quiet, represented in the balance sheets. But their returns, let me tell you this, they roar. They roar out loud, and they're capable to do this because they follow these habits. Here is habit 12. They redefine legacy in real time. Legacy is not what you leave. It's not the will, it's the witness. The way people feel when they sit at your table. The way your money moves when no one is watching. The women I work with, they don't just build wealth, they build ripples. Because here's the truth. A paycheck fits you, a portfolio frees you, but a legacy, that multiplies you. These women invest with intention. They move with impact. They write a story with every dollar they deploy. And the story is not just about them. Their wealth echoes. It shows up in the affordable housing they helped me build, in the safe spaces they funded, in the communities they restored, not for optics, but for alignment. It shows up in the daughter who knows she doesn't have to choose between kindness and capital. In the niece who hears we own that building and suddenly dreams bigger. In the neighbors who thrive, not because someone saved them, but because someone believed enough to invest differently. Let me be very clear and open. There was a time I thought legacy was about the big exit, the impressive check, the headline. But now I know the real legacy is built in the quiet, in the decision to say, I'm going to invest this dollar in a way that expands me and the world I want to live in. Not performative, not perfect, but powerful. And this is the circle I protect. This is the kind of women I raise capital with. She's not loud, but her impact is undeniable. She's not trying to impress. You just feel her alignment. She's not in it for the flex. She's here for the forever. So if you've been sitting on your dreams, playing small with your capital, wondering if your wealth will actually mean something, it can. It can do it. But only if you're willing to stop chasing more and start building what matters to you. Start building what matters. Legacy is not what you leave, it's how you live. And you're already writing it. So let's make it and multiply it. If this sparks something in you, I don't want you to stop here. Clarity is a spark, but momentum, that's the move. And your next move will be go here and watch the next video, the 5 biggest mistakes women make when investing. Because sometimes the most powerful decision is the one that protects your capital before you even deploy it. So we're not chasing returns, we're claiming our role. And quietly wealthy women, they just don't know what to do. They know what to avoid. So go ahead, click that video because you're closer than you think to clarity, to confidence, to capital that actually reflect your worth. So you got this and I got you. See you in the next video.